Hey everybody, it's Pastor Siri. I'm a Lutheran pastor and a spiritual seeker. And in my Holy Experiment gatherings that I host once a month, we're now in the process where we're talking about the chakras, the energy centers in our body, and how Jesus really fulfills them. And that gave me a whole new meaning to the understanding of embodied divinity and of the incarnation. So today we are on part 2, where we're looking at the solar plexus and the heart chakra. So take a listen. So very briefly, last week when we talked about the root chakra, which is our sense of belonging and safety here on the planet, I talked about the power of the incarnation, the birth story of Jesus, of the feeding of the 5,000, how even the miracle of the walking on the water, how his sense of being here on the planet, of being a human and being at one with the earthly elements, just showed this beautiful, full sense of that root chakra. He's here, he's human, he's a part of things. And then that sacral chakra, the womb center, which has got our feelings and emotions, our wants, our desires, our creativity, even our sexuality. You see in the story of Jesus how he affirms other people's wanting. And one of my favorite stories, when Mary anoints his feet, it's so sensual. It's so sensual and makes other people uncomfortable. And he defends her. He's not weirded out where other people are. He has so much space within himself for other people's wants, desires, emotions, feelings. And he doesn't judge when so many people do. And he has access to a lot of his emotions. We see throughout the 4 Gospels where he weeps, where he gets angry, where he's afraid, where he feels tender, where it's almost like his gut lurches in compassion. So he has this accessibility to that aspect of being human. So today I want us to think about the solar plexus right here in our core. And you can almost imagine it's like a little sun burning. And this part of us talks about, the questions are, what power do I have? Where does that power come from? What am I worth? Who am I? And what am I doing? And how do I do it? And why do I do it? And I think this is such a powerful thing to think about. When we are about the age of 2, 3, you can see this developing when kids start saying no. And when they say, do it myself, and you're like, oh, great. Putting on shoes is now going to take 7 minutes instead of 30 seconds. Because they need to start doing it. It's like some switch goes off right here. Something activates. It's like, we got to figure out what we can do. And they struggle and they fall and they fail. But when there's room for that, they can get a real healthy sense of self-esteem, a sense of, I can do it. I can do it. Even if I fail, I can work hard and I can do it. And so when that starts to develop, there can be a sense of resilience of like, it's okay that I fail. I'm still good. I'm still lovable if I make mistakes. I can still accomplish even if I'm not the best at, even if I'm not the good at. So there's a lot about what can I accomplish and what is that worth and what am I worth? And immediately as I start talking about this, I bet you can start to see where some of this goes wrong. Where even when we're younger, there's something we do and we're shamed for it. There's something we fail at, we're shamed for it. There might be even a sense of, hey, you've got a girl who's being bossy and she's shamed for that. And so as we're trying to explore our power and we're trying to see what we can and can't do, we start to really get a lot of messages from the world that amplify certain things or shut things down depending on culture, gender, all sorts of stuff, family, religion, all sorts of stuff. And this can be, we can have a lot of pain. We can start to feel shame, the sense of there's something deeply wrong with me. There's something deeply wrong with me that I am not good enough as I am, that there's something flawed. That's sort of the fear of this part. And I think that is where the ego really develops. This is where the ego comes in to save our ass, because we're so terrified of being nothing. I think it's one of the most fundamental things, right? We want to belong, we want to be loved, and we want to be worth something. And the fear that we're nothing is so existential that I think the ego develops as a way to protect us. And it has all these amazing tools, like endless tools of ways to identify itself, to hold on to something. And so you can be like, well, I'm going to be the best at this ever. And your ego's like, yes, this is our lifeline. This is the way for us to find power, love, and identity. We're going to do this. It could be, I'm better than you because I'm a Christian. I'm a boy. I'm a this. I'm white. Whatever it is, there's so many ways in our culture that people will start to teach you your identity hangs on this. Which is one reason why, as that starts to get pulled under with anti-racism training and, toxic masculinity talk, people get terrified because you're taking away what their ego has created as their very sense of self. This is what makes you worthy as a human being. They have not found it or grounded it in anything real. It is on a house of cards. But that's all the ego knows how to do. God bless it. You're dealing with the egos of a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. Think about the stuff we go through. Puberty, hormones. It's like we start to figure out who we are, and then we're assaulted again with a whole new way of being. And then people make fun of us, and we're gangly and we're weird. And there's a lot that gets attacked here in our sense of who we are and what we're worth. What I love in the Jesus story is how much he worked on this and exemplified a very healed solar plexus. So one way this could look is someone with no self-esteem who feels, I can't do anything. I'm terrible. I think a lot of us are going to hold voices like that, very critical, very shaming. That also can come out in another way, where in order to feel okay, you exert your control over others. So you want to have power, but you do it by reaching out and grabbing. And these are all sort of the ego's tricks, is you either shrink or you reach out and you start to grab. But none of them come from a sense of centeredness, right? So in the beginning of 3 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, right after Jesus is baptized, the first thing he does is he goes into the wilderness for 40 days before he officially starts his ministry. And he goes to meet his shadow self. That's how I interpret it. He goes to meet the parts of himself that would use his power, his identity, out of ego. And so we have this story of the devil coming to him and saying, you're hungry, turn that stone into bread. Use your power to make yourself feel better. No, and he ends up later using it to feed 5,000 people. He's tempted again, do this cool thing, and then you'll get fame. Be a greatest showman, and then everyone's going to come running to you. And Jesus has to think through that, right? These are real temptations. He's like, no, I'm not going to let my sense of identity, mission, and use my power for my ego. And we know so many people that do this all the time in the religious sphere. We know people that abuse their power. We know people that have no sense of like their ego starts to run wild once they start to get all that attention and fame. And because they never did that work of really looking at the shadow. And what I love about this particular interpretation of the wilderness is he had to see what was possible within himself. If you think he's this perfect guy who just so easily goes, no, those things are stupid, go away from me because I'm too perfect, I don't think it does justice to why he was there. I think it's much more powerful for him to say, I could be loved, I could be hated. I could be put on a pedestal and I could be stoned to death, all in the same day. How am I going to proceed? Am I going to proceed from the whims and the egos of other people and what they want me to do? What is my mission? Where does my will come from? And when we were studying the Lord's Prayer, remember we talked about aligning your will with God's. Yeah. So I think that was a huge thing that Jesus was doing, but he had to face everything in him that wasn't going to do. And then the last thing I'm going to say before I open it up is we're reading through the Gospel of John right now, and I can't believe how many times it's just put in there little lines like, but he didn't entrust himself to them, but he didn't care about their opinion. Basically, little bits of pieces when people get mad at him or when they love him, he's just like, all right, I'm going to go out now. Like, peace out, see you later. There's a real sense that he is so grounded in his sense of self and mission that the attempts to control him and to put on him don't stick to him because he knows it's their ego games and he sees it for what it is, and he doesn't give his power to them. He doesn't entrust himself to them, which we all know we should do. But to actually see someone who could do that, who you could like fawn over him and love him or curse him out and he'd be like, I just want you to be okay. I just want you to be well. I don't care what you think of me. I think that's something that we so very rarely see. So I'm going to stop there and just open it up now to conversation about how that resonates. Any thoughts, questions, observations?
Mary and I did I don't remember, Wednesdays in January or whatever. And we read through this book called Mindfulness. And one of the lessons was about let them, right? Like, and don't let other people's behaviors, probably ego-centered behaviors, like stick to you. Like, just let them. And were you and I talking about this last week?
I don't know, but
Yeah.
it sounds familiar. I don't know.
Yeah. It was somebody else. Oh, I don't remember who it was. It was Diane, but we were talking about sometimes you just need to let them.
Mm-hmm.
And as a friend of mine tells me to be a turtle and let it run off your back and not stick. So that it doesn't become a part of you and it doesn't become something gets stuck in who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Let them be them. I'm going to continue to be me. I hope you're well.
I think it's so deep and primal that we look outside of ourselves for validation, affirmation, purpose. And it is really a lot of work to start to notice when you're doing that,
Mm-hmm.
and then to start to find, well, where is the real core to me and what I can and can't do that's defined by me and not other people.
Well, and the pickle with that is that we are nurtured and grow usually in community. I mean, we have a desperate need to be in community with other people. And so being cared for by other people or liked by other people means something, right? And then so the being able to say, I'm not going to absorb your negativity about me is just awfully difficult. And I mean, it feels like the first place we start then is in the body saying, how does my body feel about this? So that I can start to work with it. Because I'm not going to, it's just not going to penetrate. It will penetrate in some way, but it's work. It's just real work. It feels to me like it's never this black and white thing of my ego's all pulled together and I know who I am and all those other people, who cares? It's really, really hard work, and it's a dance and it's a struggle.
Every single day.
Yeah.
Activity and
Every single day, for sure, Dawn.
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Sometimes hour to hour and moment to moment. And you can
Yeah.
be feeling so much, your identity can be feeling, feeling so strong and just, and just healthy. And you feel that purpose, and you feel needed and part of community. You just feel healthy. And then sometimes it doesn't take much to get off track.
No,
Right?
no. And that first like half of life, you are supposed to build up your ego. Like, there's nothing wrong with a kid having a sense of ego. They're just learning, and that's literally what do I want to say? It's a major tool of being human.
The process of development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to try to like encourage a kid to have no ego is not fair, because you only dismantle your ego once you have it.
All right.
And this is another thing of, when you have theology that's been mostly created by men in power, and they talk about things like humility in a way that kind of is almost humiliation or stripping of your ego, and then they enforce that on people who've had no power. It's very, very abusive. So in order to find your power, part of it is first you need to sort of build your ego so you know what to let go of. And the humility then starts to come naturally because it comes from a place of something deep as you discover what's true. But you can't discover what's true without finding what's not true. And so some of these, theologies of original sin, which I've said many times comes from, I don't buy it. And I think it comes from people who've had a lot of power, who are like, oh, I abused my power and I didn't do good things. Oh, we're so bad. We're so bad. We're all so bad. So there's something to this process of being human. And as you get older, this is where sort of the midlife crisis comes in, where the stronger your ego was, the harder getting older can be. And the question is, will the ego start to crystallize around you in a way where you can't move and you get more and more rigid? Or will you start to learn to break out of that and become more of your true self? And I think that's why in middle age and as we get older, there's different processes that happen inside us internally and spiritually that younger people may not quite understand, or it might just be theoretical, a really good idea. It is impressive to think that Jesus at the age of 30 then would have been able to be like, yes, ego, no need. Okay. In that sort of sense. But I will say there's some of you know that I deeply admire Greta Thunberg, and there was a couple months ago, she was on this flotilla that was going to bring food to Gaza. They knew it was dangerous. So she's in her early 20s. They knew it was dangerous. The first time they were stopped and sent back. The second time they went on international waters, they were boarded by the Israeli army. And then they were captured, which was illegal, taken back to a prison, and they were all abused, all of them. And then when they finally were released, everyone wanted to know, Greta, what happened to you? And she goes, it doesn't matter what happened to me. I want to talk about the people in Gaza. That's what this is about.
Mm.
This is someone who has done a lot of work inside themselves in terms of knowing how to use your power to empower others, to use your voice in a way, having a mission and ministry and letting that be what guides you rather than focusing on, it's so easy. Well, yes, poor me, this bad thing happened. And no one would have blamed her for it,
Right.
for taking a moment to talk about the bad things that happened to her. But that wasn't the point. Let's move on.
There seems to be some people that are born already invested with their from a very, very, very young age. I mean, she was one of them. She almost died from despair when she saw what the world was like. And she was so mission focused in her body that she could hardly eat. And but she had supportive parents who were able to say, yeah, we get it. You have to do what you have to do, right? Or same with Jane Goodall's mother, who understood when she took a pile of dirt and worms into her bed because she was so fascinated by them, and didn't shame her. She was like 3 or 4, right? But there was such a who she was from the time she was so tiny, right? But then it takes great parenting to allow that vision to come through in a person, right?
Yeah.
That's a rare parent,
Yes.
to be able to get that much outside of yourself as a parent.
Yeah.
Because your parents had a little more time to crystallize.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible. Both of them, both sets of parents, the mother and the.
We're talking about people that have an old soul.
Yeah.
Like they get it before they should really get it
Yeah.
developmentally, but we probably all know people who have or have known people that you have an old soul.
So we'll kind of transition into the next one, the heart chakra. And energetically, they often say there's like a wall between the third and the fourth chakra, that it's really hard to move from a sense of power into what the heart offers. It's very terrifying. I've heard, and I really like this, that humanity has been working through issues in the third chakra for thousands of years. And there is a leaning to push us into the heart as a humanity. And that is incredibly terrifying for people who have a huge stake in the power structure of the third chakra, which hasn't been healthy. It has been power over, right? But when you push up in here, you have a completely different sense of community and empowering that can open up. And it is a kind of a cosmic process. But individually, the heart is where we start to move from the I into we. And the arms are often said to be an extension of the heart chakra. And so think about what you do with your arms. You protect yourself from things and you open your arms to embrace. And the image too of Jesus on the cross, of reaching out so wide, it's got a lot of potent symbolism to it. But we're invited into a way of living that is very mature in its relationships, in forgiving and in serving and honoring other people. And of course, there's a lot of imbalances and pain that come here. So we can feel hurt and feel jealousies and holding grudges and closing our heart to compassion because we've been wounded. Heartbreak, that's very real. On the other hand, there are people who almost can be sort of that opposite where they kind of fall for anything and they sort of have this naive sort of sense, but it's the balance that we have in between is really this capacity to hold all that is without judgment. And the more we can hold within ourselves, the more we can hold, which is sort of like more. And this is, I think this is a huge deal in immature Christian faith when we make God to be this condemning judge. We don't understand, literally don't comprehend the power of the heart and how that mirrors some sort of cosmic compassion. The ability of what you're able to hold, we just struggle with. And I think about how it's so easy for us to be judgmental. It's in the water, it's in the air. We judge ourselves, we judge each other every single second of the day. It's so hard to imagine not judging something. There's an exercise that several books have taught me to do where you just look around and you look at an object and you go, I don't actually know what that is. I'm imposing a whole lifetime of stories. That's a bottle of wine. It's red. It's very sweet, Mogan David. It's very cheap. I think I know everything about that wine. I put my judgment on it, right? I put my judgment on that bread, that microphone. I can put each of you in a category, right? These are my interactions with you and these are my thoughts. And maybe you look like someone I knew 20 years ago and that informs my opinion of you. But my ability to actually look at you and see the soul that you are, I don't. I can't do that. I can barely do that with myself. We're so filtered with judgments. And I think this is the power of watching how Jesus moves through the world, is his ability to greet somebody and sort of see kind of where they are and interact with them in a way that somehow matches where they are quite amazingly. And even if it looks from the surface like they might be like this person. Well, why did he treat this one this way and this one a different way? Somehow he was able to see they were in a different place and had a different need. And his capacity to be able to go, yep, that too I accept. Yeah, so a couple stories of that. Obviously, when Jesus encounters people and he heals them, but his compassion for the marginalized. And then the most potent of all is that line, is it Luke? Father, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. It's just this unbelievable statement of Jesus being able to look at people and go, their perception is so warped. They don't see anything for as it really is. And I feel so sorry for them because they're suffering and they're causing mass amounts of suffering. Everybody is just in a nightmare and they're nightmaring all over me. And I feel so sorry for them. That ability to hold that level of compassion, that even when people are yelling at you to die and laughing at you while you're physically suffering, is almost inhuman compassion. So to me, that is how I think he represents that very, very open and wise chakra. And I'm going to stop there and see what you all have to say.
I come back to how we use our hands, and you were talking about to protect ourselves, both like as a shield, but also as a weapon.
Yeah.
Right. And when I think about the difference between people who will use their heart as a weapon versus people who use their heart as an invitation, right? It's just so different. And I was raised in the Missouri Synod, and so I was taught more about weapons than invitation. And so Yeah, it struck me as you were guarding yourself, but it's like, oh, also weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I think if you come from a place of abuse as a child,
Yes.
Yeah.
you're gonna be like this, you're
Protect,
closed, shield,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
angry and
Mhm.
protection
Yeah.
and less able to open.
Mm-hmm.
And
Unless you take care of that, unless you're given the opportunity to take care of that
Yeah.
trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
it takes a lifetime.
Yes.
You know, we're broken hearted, we physically feel it here, and we curve in as a sort of protection. You know, like when you're in grief, you're curved in on yourself to protect yourself. And on the other hand, when you're really happy and in love, you're kind of, more of that openness. And there's nothing wrong. It's not about wrong. It's not about wrong and right. It's about hurt and healing.
Yeah.
And that's a completely different way. And so when Jesus encounters us, I think he can actually sense our energy, and he can probably sense where the hurts are. And I'm guessing that the healing he did, the energy healing that he did, affected more than just what's reported, right? Do you want to see? Yeah, sure, I want to see. Do you want to be made well? Is actually the question. Sure. Well, sight's going to be a bonus because I'm going to align these suckers for you and then see how you feel. Oh, that's my postulation, is like when Jesus encountered people, if they were receptive to that power of his energy, they would receive way more than they thought. There's something in Eastern traditions called the Shaktiput, which is what a guru gives to a disciple. And it's basically like a jolt of awakening. They give some of their energy to you. So they might touch you on the forehead, and then like you just get this deep download of energy from them that can not only be healing, but sometimes opens you up to possibilities, mysteries, the presence of the holy. It can be some of the most profound moments of someone's life to receive that from their teacher. And I wonder if there was anything like that Jesus did when he was like, do you have my permission? Or do I have your permission to lay my hands on you and to help you? And that's why you actually hear this sense of when people didn't believe and were rejecting his energy, he couldn't do much because he's never going to force himself on anyone, right? It's all going by consent. The divine is all about consent. Nothing is ever imposed on you. He's not going to force a healing. He's not going to force your heart open. He's not going to force anything. There's a story that Ram Dass tells about this young man who's from Japan, and he's on a train, and he studies Aikido, right? A martial arts, and it's all about, peacemaking, but if you gotta protect and defend, you can, right? And so he's this master of Aikido, and he's on this train, and this drunk man comes on the train, and he just starts acting like he pushes over an old lady, and he's just causing a ruckus, and this young man stands up and he's like, this is the moment. He's like, I know that I have the power to beat up anyone in this, like, no, right? Like, I got this. And so he's all ready to defend everything. He looks over at the drunk guy and he kind of goes like this, like taunts him. And the guy's just, he's ready to just barrel towards him and have a fight. And just as he's about to do this old man goes, hey, to the drunk man. And he goes, come here. Just throws off the drunk man. The drunk man stumbles over and he goes, what's your name? And the guy is confused, tells him, and he goes, sit with me, like it's his old friend. And then he goes, oh, have you been drinking something? You know, no judgment. And the guy goes, yeah, sake. And he goes, I love sake. My wife and I will have sake every night. You know, what kind do you like? And do you do that too? And then eventually the man says, well, my wife is gone. I lost my job. Like his whole life has fallen apart. And all of a sudden, the kindness of this man opens up. He starts speaking and he begins to cry. And within minutes, the old man has his head on his lap and he's stroking as this drunk man is crying. And the young man watching this goes, and for the first time in my life, I saw Aikido in action.
Mm.
He saw that really that is true power. So the power and love thing, when we put those together, it's so powerful because we think that power is the power to, marvel, kick people around and do all the things, when what we see in some of the most embodied advanced souls is their ability to use that power in conjunction with deep compassion to inform them on how to move in the world. And it makes them very powerful and also very uncontrollable. Because you can't control someone and manipulate somebody who is that centered in themselves and that open to others. And I think it's just imagining for a moment what that would feel like. Yes.
So it seems like the third chakra, which is about individuation, but also power and being grounded in who you are, but that can get really rigid. But if you're moving through that and you go up into love, then you take that power and you empower, right?
Nice.
So these all stack on top of each other in a way that by the time you reach here, you have somebody who is just really at home in who they are, someone who just moves solidly on the earth, someone who's connected to their emotions and feelings in a way, but also knows good boundaries, someone who understands what's their power and what's not their power, theirs to do, theirs not to do, and someone who's aligned their choices and their movement with purpose and compassion, and has a sense of showing of using their power and their identity in a expanded way. So, and that we just keep moving up the chakras and see what happens when we get to the top. But that alone to get those first four integrated would be a level of human that's just very rare to see. And I think we have seen it, but it's often gentler than we think. These aren't the people that become big CEOs and get on TV and because they don't care.
That's why they were so mad at Jesus, right? He was such a disappointment. He was so gentle.
Mhm.
Yeah. He wasn't what probably 95% of people's expectations. He failed them utterly. There's probably 5% that were like, I see you. And he's like, yeah, I see you.